Hey, Brian Goulet here of the Goulet Pen Company, and I've got a pretty cool new pen here. It's one that was just recently released as of the making of this video here in February 2014. It's the Monteverde Regatta Sport. Now this is actually a kind of relaunch, a redesign of the Monteverde Regatta, which is a pen that was discontinued maybe 6 months ago or so. They brought it back, threw some carbon fiber on it, did a couple new colors, and I really think they stepped this pen up quite a bit. The Regatta was one that I bought one pen a while ago. You know, Rachel and I were considering kind of carrying it for a while. We never quite pulled the trigger on it, and then we heard it was being discontinued, so we decided not to get into the pen. But they, you know, when I heard they were relaunching this, it was like, really? Like, I don't know. It's got a magnetic cap, which is kind of the draw for it. It's kind of a bigger pen, it's a heavier pen, and we were like, I don't know, we'll see. But once we saw these colors and saw the redesign, it was such an easy decision, like, oh yeah, we gotta carry this thing. It's so cool, so sleek, so kind of this like racing industrial kind of look to it. It looks awesome. I just couldn't even resist. I took one for myself, even though we didn't get that many to start. I still took one because I thought it was so neat. So that's what I'm gonna talk about here in this video. I'm gonna kind of just show you some of the cool things about this pen, review it a little bit, and introduce you to this brand new Monteverde Regatta Sport. This is what the Monteverde Regatta Sport looks like when you receive it. It's going to say Regatta Sport and have some kind of indication of the color and whatnot. This is the Monteverde's kind of typical green box. It's a nice box, really sturdy, solid. They always come in good shape. It's got kind of this nice Monteverde silver logo in there, and it's got the silver logo in the top of the box too. Definitely a nice, one of the nicer pen boxes that I see out there. First thing you see is this card that says, to register your pen at Jaffa.com. Jaffa is the distributor for all these brands you see down here, and they do warranty stuff as well. So it's a good idea to register that whenever you get a new pen. Here's my Regatta Sport. I personally liked the black and yellow one. I'm not real big on yellow pens, but I'll be honest with you, I saw this one and I was like, yeah, that looks cool. The black and yellow, black and yellow. I just think it looks really cool. I don't know how many of you will get that reference, but it's got some instructions in here, which are pretty straightforward. It's a cartridge converter pen, takes standard international cartridges, and it comes with a converter as well. The cartridges in here, let's see here, it looks like it's a whole box, but it's not. It's 2 cartridges. You get one black and one blue, and I would assume that it's Monteverde ink in there. And then inside the pen, which, let me just get all the junk out of the way. So here's the pen itself. And the coolest thing about this pen by far, aside from the fact that it kind of just looks sweet and kind of this, like almost like a race car kind of, I don't know. I'm not very with it with that kind of stuff, but it looks really cool. It's got a magnetic cap. That is by far like one of the coolest things about this particular pen is it just, you just take it off, and it's got kind of this like ching sound to it. It almost has got like a little bit of ring to it. I'm gonna try and get my mic really close so you can actually hear it. But it's pretty sweet. And it's definitely the kind of pen that, if I was gonna bring this pen to an appointment or a meeting of some kind, and I really wanted to draw attention to my pen, this is how I would do it. I think it's just got such a cool factor to it. And actually, it's a really heavy pen, so it's very impressive in terms of its weight and its build quality and stuff like that. So that to me is kind of the selling point. I don't know that this is a pen that I personally would like journal with for extended periods of time and stuff like that. I don't know that that's really the point so much. You can certainly do that, but I think for me it's more of the statement that it's making, just this is the pen that you would buy for yourself to just kind of, play with and just kind of oogle over the design and stuff like that. I think it's really cool. But then to actually show you kind of the inside, getting back to how this pen fills and whatnot, you can remove the body like so in here, and then it's got a threaded Monteverde converter, which is a standard international converter. You can use a regular standard international converter. It doesn't have to be this threaded Monteverde one, but the threading is actually really nice because when you go to fill the pen, it makes it so that the converter will not come out, and there's no risk of dropping the grip and the nib of the pen into the ink when you're going to fill it. I've done that before with some other pens that don't fit as well, but that's not a risk with this one. So pretty cool. I really like kind of that aspect of the pen. These are the 3 colors of the Regatta Sport. There's red, black, and yellow. Now they've all got the same kind of carbon fiber strip in the middle here of both the cap and the body. And the grip on all 3 of these pens is the same, kind of that matte grip. You can get a black or steel nib on these things, but it's the body color that's going to be a little bit different. The black one is a matte black, and then the red and the yellow one are kind of like this shiny lacquer. So it's a little bit different finish on the black one than it is on the other 2, at least where the painted parts are concerned. The finial and everything is the same on all 3, same on the back, and then you can see the grip is going to be the same on all 3 pens. Looking at the pen close up, the finial here is pretty cool. It's 3-dimensional, the little Monteverde mountain logo there. It looks a little different than it does on all the other pens. It's really kind of a finer detail. It's really kind of neat. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on with this pen. It's got kind of this little diamond pattern that's it's raised up a little bit. It is kind of inset in there, but you can feel the texture of it just a bit. It's got this carbon fiber weave, which is real carbon fiber, with a like a gloss lacquer coating on it. You can see the clip here is a pleasant shape. It's a pretty firm clip, not too intense. I would say you wouldn't want to have this on your jeans or something like that. But if you got a dress shirt or just kind of a normal shirt pocket, the clip should fit on here just fine. Looking at some of the other details, it's got the Monteverde USA imprint on the center band there. It's very, very subtle, just a slight engraving. And then it says Regatta on the back of it there, you can see in all caps. Then on the bottom, it's kind of just emulates the design on the cap as well. And then on the bottom finial, there is nothing, it's just plain. And then if you are, taking the cap off here, the grip is nice. There is a bit of a step going from, quite a bit of a step going from the grip up to the pen body. So that is probably one complaint that I think I will hear more than most others, is if you tend to hold your pen really far back, I could see where you could argue that this step would be uncomfortable. But if you're holding your grip kind of in a normal position, or if you do like I do and have kind of a really offset thumb grip, this is how I hold my pen, almost this far. So there I'm actually kind of avoiding the step, and that actually is fairly comfortable to me. So it's not as big a deal for me, but I could see where it might be for some. And then on the cap here, you can see inside the cap there's no insert to speak of, so I don't know that, that this pen will be any better about drying out or keeping the nib wet or anything like that than kind of any normal fountain pen. I wouldn't expect that it's going to have a remarkable ability to keep the nib from drying out, but I don't anticipate it being any worse than any normal pen. And then you can see here the ring, the silver ring in here, that's the magnet that's actually catching and is actually closing it. There's very little effort that's used. You can see here it actually kind of jumps up and just kind of like attaches itself on there. And it does make this kind of cool sound. This is like this very like click kind of sound. And then it does the same thing on the back where it posts. And you can kind of post it in any position. It doesn't really matter. So that is definitely kind of neat, that little magnetic part. So one thing that I'm sure is on your mind when it comes to this pen is it's got a magnetic cap. What does that mean? Not a lot of pens out there have magnetic caps. Is this going to cause me any kind of problems or anything like that? Well, I haven't heard of pens with magnetic caps ever being a problem. The magnet is mainly just to keep the cap onto the pen itself. And it's honestly kind of cool. It's got this neat sound to it, and it really kind of locks the cap on there very firmly. I don't know for sure what kind of magnet it is, but it appears to be some kind of rare earth magnet. I'm not 100% certain on that. That's just from my experience with magnets, that's what it appears to be. So it's a very strong magnet in terms of keeping the cap on the pen. In terms of its practical usage, I don't think you have to worry about it too much in the handling of it and stuff like that. The most interesting thing that I've run into as I've been kind of playing with it is I had some paper clips here, and I was like, I wonder if it's going to affect the paper clips. Well, it definitely will, you know, act as a paper clip holder for you if you want to. You know, again, I think anything much more than a paper clip, it probably wouldn't stick to it or affect it very much. But, you know, I don't know, if you wanted to just have this thing kind of sitting on your desk and act like a little paper clip holder, you could certainly do that. It would kind of get in the way of your writing, you know, but it's actually, it actually works okay there, so it kind of sticks to the cap. That's neat. I don't know, just something interesting to point out. So I'm sure just that's something that was on your mind with this pen. One thing about these pens, because they do have these strong magnets in the cap, especially if you have two pens next to each other, I was just kind of playing around and noticing that if I have them aligned in a very specific way, I can actually use the magnets to kind of repel each other and retract each other a little bit. So if I have it kind of offset, it'll attract. It's not strong enough to like pick it up or anything. It's pretty weak, but it's enough to get it to roll. So that's kind of neat. In case, you know, as I had them and I was trying to kind of put them all next to each other, I was like, what is going on here? Why is this thing so crazy? So that's just kind of some fun you can have with the magnets, you know, kind of rolling it back and forth like that. What I have here, this is the old Monteverde Regatta. So it actually had kind of the same raised logo in the cap. Similar design, got the magnetic cap and all that, but it's a kind of a different feel to it. Even though the overall design is not drastically different, you still have kind of this you know, stepped approach with this alternating, you know, kind of pattern to it and all that. This one, I don't know, it just feels, you know, especially the name Regatta, it feels like kind of regal, kind of fancy, as opposed to, you know, the new Sport thing, which I think going and kind of changing the name from Regatta to Regatta Sport, I think was really, really appropriate. So kind of spot on there, Monteverde, in my opinion, because that's really what this pen feels like now, rather than feeling like this kind of, you know, royal scepter kind of looking pen. It really feels a lot more sporty now, a lot more industrial. And I kind of dig it. So if you'd heard about the Regatta, or if you're just doing some Google searches and you know, finding this older style of Regatta, there were a couple of different colors that they had. They had this kind of blue and white one. They had, I think, a black and white one, and one other color that I just can't seem to recall. But this version is no longer made anymore. So there might be some retailers that still have them, or you may see them popping up on eBay every now and then. But this has now passed, and this Regatta Sport is the design that they're moving forward with in the future. Filling the Regatta Sport's really straightforward. It's just like every other standard international pen that you pretty much ever used. So I've got a bottle of Monteverde Black here. Figured that was an appropriate ink to use. So just unscrew the top. Pen disassembles really easily. All you gotta do is grab the grip here, and then you unscrew the body. It threads right there, and then that exposes the converter inside. Now you can use, you know, ink cartridges here as well. I'm showing you how to fill with a converter, but it's the same concept. You just have a cartridge of ink that you would stick in here. The converter is a threaded converter that comes in the pen, which is really nice because when you go to actually ink it up, the converter is really positively locked in here, and you don't have to worry about it dropping off inside the bottle or anything like that. So you got it to fill, and then take the piston, move it all the way down like so. Then you want to make sure that you're dipping the nib all the way up in here. It's going to fill from this tiny little filler hole right here at the base of the feed where it meets the grip section. So you want to make sure that the whole nib is submerged all the way up until you get some ink on the grip. So I'm going to go ahead and plop it all the way down in there, and then slowly move that piston up. Now there will be a pretty decent air bubble at the top when you're filling the pen for the very first time. You can see that air bubble in there. Nice trick for filling it more is just to slowly expel it back out, and that'll help to get some of the air out, and then fill it again. Now there's a much smaller air bubble up there, really not enough for me to worry about. Then just kind of wipe off there, and then it's always handy to have, you know, paper towel or something like that, napkin or whatever you want to use, to just kind of wipe off the grip, wipe off the nib a little bit, and then body of the pen just screws back on. If you want to, you can take and reverse the converter a little bit, drip a couple drips out of here, but this nib is going to be pretty wet as it is, and it should be good to write. So I've got my pen inked up now. This is a Monteverde Regatta Sport in my pretty yellow with the Monteverde black, and I have a Monteverde medium black nib on here. Now the nib options for the Monteverde pens are fine, medium, broad, and a 1.1 millimeter stub. And you can get all of those in either a black finish or a chrome finish. It's the same stainless steel nib. It's really just the aesthetics. They're going to look a little different. I like the medium one because it's kind of just a good all-around nib. Really good for if you are just kind of getting into pens and if you want to really kind of see the ink that you're putting down. I tend to gravitate towards mediums myself. But if you're using really cheap paper, it might be better to go with a fine nib. I've got some good stuff here. Some Rhodia number 16 dot pad here. It's 80 gram white paper, very ink resistant stuff. And I have it inked up. Things all good to go. The thing I did notice is my feed was pretty flooded when I first filled it up. So I used a paper towel to kind of just get some of the excess ink off of there. It's writing pretty smoothly for me now. Now the Monteverde nibs are usually pretty good. I do find they tend to be a little bit tight, meaning that it tends to write a little on the dry side sometimes, not always, but that definitely can be the case. Now this ink that I'm using here, this is Monteverde black, which is a lubricated ink. I'm not very good at writing and talking at the same time. So it is lubricated, which means that it's not going to have as much an issue in a dry writing pen as maybe some other inks would. Even still, one thing that you can do to kind of loosen up the tines just a little bit is to overflex it just a tiny bit, okay? Just enough to kind of spread the tines out. You don't want to go too nuts with it because it's hard to go backwards, but that can be a neat little trick when you are trying to increase your flow a little bit. It can help when you have some tight tines like that. I experienced that just a little bit on this nib, but honestly it wasn't a huge deal. It's just because me personally, I tend to like my pens to write a little bit wetter, so that's why I did that adjustment. But even still, it's not something you have to do. Smooth nib. It does have a little bit of feedback to it. It's not scratchy by any means. This is a pretty smooth one. This particular nib I have on here is pretty good. And it's going to write, now it's writing a little wetter, but it was a little bit drier earlier, but hasn't changed too drastically. I didn't go too nuts with the spreading it out though. Overall though, the Monteverde nibs, there's a lot of different Monteverde pens. All the nibs are the same, whether it's on the Regatta Sport or the Invincia or everything except for the Artista Crystal and the Paquito. Uses the same number 6 size Monteverde nibs. It's a good brand, got a good reputation, and overall I really like the writing experience that I get with Monteverde. So there you have it. There is the Monteverde Regatta Sport. Pretty cool pen. I kind of like it. Maybe it's your thing, maybe it's not. I don't know. But either way, if you have any other questions or any comments you want to make, you can leave me a comment on YouTube or on Ink Nouveau. Hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I just love to talk about this pen a little bit. Thanks so much for spending time with me watching this video today. Right on.